Well, hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us at ATIA 2025. I'm Caroline Van Houw with ATIA, and I'm delighted to be moderating this 2025 Prentke AAC Distinguished Lecture. For the persons, we have the in-person audience in Orlando and also the virtual attendees online, and we are live streaming this through YouTube. So we have a combined online audience and in-person audience of well over 500 people. I will be monitoring the online chat and acting as the voice of our virtual audience during this day's session. For those online, captioning can be turned on in your Zoom settings. Please join me in welcoming David Dichter, CEO of ATIA, for this Prentke lecture.
Hey, thank you. Thank you all so much for being here today. This is one of the most special honors that I get as part of ATIA. Besides getting to talk to all of you as we walk through the halls, and some of you stop me and tell me how the conference is going. In the past 4 years, ATIA, thankfully to PRC Sotillo, who sponsors this lecture series, I get a chance to meet some pretty amazing folks. And I am really honored to be here today with Shannon, who you're going to get to know a lot better very soon. I got to go through some little details, and I'm not going to do it the same way all the other sessions do it, but you know, we have these disclosures we have to make for all the CU stuff. So, we're all here. I work for ATIA. I do make some money here and there. Shannon's not, Shannon's got some wins an award and all of that. So, you know what? That's the business out of the way. For the CEU folks, here are the learning objectives for today. The learning objectives are: you're going to cry a little bit, you're going to laugh a little bit, and you're going to have a great time in this session. Right, Shannon? Yeah. All right. So those are the learning objectives. And for those of you who are getting ACVREP CEUs, the start code is PINK01. I have no idea what the end code will be, but we'll announce that, I guess, at the end, but whatever, especially for the online folks. I want to start by recognizing somebody named Gus Estrella. Gus was the first Prentke Award winner in 1997, I believe. And in the past few weeks or month, Gus passed away. And so I didn't personally know Gus, but I just want to read to you some descriptions about Gus. He was fearless, charming, a passionate advocate, authentic, and inspirational. He was all that and more. He was a rock star. And you know what? If you've been following the Prentke lecture series for 5 years, I'm not sure how many in total at this point, every winner is a rock star. And giving folks who use AAC the opportunity to represent a community that is too many times undervalued and underrepresented is the best thing in the world that we could be doing. And that's what's awesome about this time here. So without any further ado, I want to introduce Angela Standridge. She's the director of the Texas Technology Access Program, and she is our coordinator for the review team for the Prentke lecture series.
I need my small jacket.
It's all yours.
Thank you, David. Morning, y'all. So first of all, I would like to thank the Prentke Saltillo Company for sponsoring this award and ATIA for hosting it. It used to previously be hosted with ASHA, and I did participate in the committee at that time. I've been this committee chair for this is my second year. I would like to thank my extremely fabulous committee. If you're here, guys, do raise your hand. Lori Geist, Amy Goldman, Tracy Rackensberger, Gail Van Tatenhove, and we did invite last year's recipient, Karin Versinge, to be on the committee this year. We have instigated that. We will extend that invitation to Shannon at the conclusion of this year. And then also Sarah Wild sits on the committee as a Prentke representative. She does not vote, but she does give us input and feedback for our final decisions. Now, a little bit about that decision. This is probably the funnest thing I do professionally and the most difficult thing I do professionally. We typically have between 10 and 20 applicants. They are all stellar in many different ways. We usually are able to narrow it down to about 5 to 6 finalists. And then it's a little bit of a shootout on who gets to win because everybody has an opinion and a thought, and they're all excellent candidates. I will also add we often have applicants that have submitted over multiple years. And I'm sure that when they are not awarded the award, they think, well, why didn't I get that? I seem to have the same kinds of qualifications. Remember, I said we have 5 or 6 applicants that all make that. They're all excellent candidates for the award. So I would encourage everyone to continue to apply, even if you have not in the past, or if you're an augmented communicator that thinks you might want to apply in the future. I have some tips. First of all, make sure you fill everything out on the application. Sometimes our applicants do not make the cut because they have not completed all of the requirements for the application. I would encourage you to have somebody else read it over before you hit that submit button. And it's not to suggest that someone with an augmentative communication device to communicate can't fill out an application. It's to suggest that when you fill out something important, you should have somebody else with other eyes look at it to make sure you didn't misspell words or forget a piece or a part of it. If you have applied previously and you want to apply again, spice it up and change it when you apply again. If we see the same video you've submitted for 3 years in a row, we're going to go, oh, we've seen that one. You want to do something different? And then when you submit, think about this. So everyone that applies for this award is already at a level where you are. All the applicants have done what you have done. So what can you tell me as a committee member to separate you from the others to say, oh, this is what I do, and here's my extra little bit. Here's my thing that makes me one notch above the other applicants. Not that I want to make it a knockdown, drag out competition. I'm just saying as committee members, when we're looking at these applicants across the table, you need to jump out at us. So we need to know what is it that you do that's really affecting the field and the practice and other augmented communicators in a way that stands out. That's what this award is focusing on. So it's more than just your life journey and accomplishments. It's that little extra piece. And then if you have any other questions, I encourage you to contact me or anybody on the committee. We'll be happy to answer questions or have conversations with you if you have more questions. So again, thank you very much, committee. Thank you very much, ATI and PRC. Thank you, applicants. It is not an easy thing to put yourself out like that. I appreciate that. And now I am going to turn the microphone over to Sarah, who's going to give you a little bit more information and eventually introduce Karin Beer.
Thanks, Angela. And we need 2 microphones, one for us height and one for David height, I think, perhaps. Good morning, I'm Sarah Wild, and I'm thrilled to be here. On behalf of our employee owners in Worcester, Ohio, and around the country, as well as our subsidiaries around the world, I'm thrilled that PRC Saltillo is sponsoring this 28th Prentke Lecture. The Prentke Lecture, I would argue, is not only the history of technology in AAC, but also a history of the culture of this incredible industry. It's a culture where honoring Ed Prentke, one of our founders, is not focused on other engineers like he was, but of the individuals who benefit from the engineering. It's a culture where the importance of partnering with ASHA for the first 24 years of this lecture shows the importance of clinical partnerships in AAC. It's a culture where ATIA graciously welcomed and celebrated the Prentke Lecture coming to ATIA, improving on the process and also improving on the reach of this lecture to reach thousands of people around the world. It's a culture where the selection committee, as Angela noted, is made up of AAC practitioners and AAC communicators, and a culture where that committee welcomed me and also ensured that I knew that my vote didn't count. So finally, it's a culture where the nominees, as Angela noted, an incredible slate this year, are made up of a diverse group of individuals who have a variety of experiences and use a variety of technologies to independently communicate and interact in their environment. So all that to say that this industry, the companies, the practitioners, and most importantly, the AAC communicators, is a pretty remarkable industry. In a world where divisiveness and divisiveness can be all too easy to spot, in this conference and in this industry, unity is what brings us together. That's easy to find. Yes, thank you. Last year's winner was Karan Versing. He made quite an impression on me. He had easygoing humor, he had playfulness with his niece that was here, and he had an incredible excitement about what he can offer the world. That excitement was contagious. This year's award winner, Shannon Voss, has made an equal impression on me, not only because he and I share a connection to the University of Illinois and Champaign-Urbana, but because his story is a different one than many of us in this room are used to hearing, and it's an important one that we need to hear. So for his introduction, I will turn it over to Karan Veer.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karan Veer Singh, also known as Handsome Ajad. I'm excited to share my journey after the ATIA conference. ATIA was a significant boost for me, as I'm now receiving more opportunities than ever before. For instance, I had the privilege of creating a video for a UK school district. Additionally, the Open Doors organization invited me to present at one of their events after seeing my presentation at ATIA. In March, I visited India and discovered something truly surprising. I'm famous in Punjab. People were stopping me on the streets, eager to talk to me because of my work and presence at the conference. This experience has opened countless doors for me, and I'm incredibly grateful. Now, it's time to introduce you to Mr. Shannon Voss. Shannon Voss has successfully navigated the challenges of this world with resilience and determination. While attending college, he initiated efforts to bridge gaps in learning environments, advocating for inclusivity in schools. His initiatives have had a profound impact on his institution. With his unique experiences, Shannon has observed many nuances within the school system. He has developed practical tools that help him navigate school life, and today, he is here to share those insights with all of you. Some of Shannon's remarkable accomplishments include valedictorian of his high school class, guest speaker for graduate speech pathology classes at DePaul University and the University of Chicago via Zoom, recipient of the Jeff Griffith Mathematical Scholarship at Parkland College, featured face of marketing at Parkland College, front page feature in the News Gazette, commencement speaker at his college graduation last year. Today, Shannon will share his personal journey, offering insight into the mind of a person with a disability and his experiences navigating the school system. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and deeply moved. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. Shannon Voss. I'm passing the torch to you. Shannon, go for it. Good luck, my friend.
It is a great honor to be the lecturer of this year. I would like to thank a woman whose name is Anna Ware. She was a former speech pathologist of mine and she sent me the application, and without her I wouldn't have this amazing opportunity. I would also like to thank the lecture selection committee for picking my topic to discuss with you all today. Lastly, I would like to thank everyone who came here today and who is listening to my presentation. You all are adults who have jobs, bills to pay, busy lives. None of the people who are here have to be here. You have chosen to be here, and I am forever thankful for this. In my lecture, I will be sharing a piece of my own personal story. Then I will be discussing what goes on inside a mind of someone who is physically challenged and what mostly goes on inside the mind of that particular individual. And lastly, I will speak on the realization that I noticed on how schools in higher education are not particularly accustomed to people who have challenges, and I will also give ways I dealt with this issue. I believe that I have a very intrinsic stance on this topic. I have a very conflicting outlook on the remembrance of how I was once treated before, to the way that I'm treated now. I chose to speak upon this subject because I am a recent college graduate and I would like to inform everyone, but especially those who have a physical, social, or mental disposition and want to enter into school setting. I hope that this information will be helpful to you. I feel like one great way to fight stigmas is to shine a light on it. To many, the subconscious is described as the thoughts and emotions we can't hear, but play over and over within us like tapes, shaping the way we see, interpret, and react in our daily lives. Our DNA is the system that controls these tapes. We all have these tapes playing all the time, but the tapes don't have to be stuck on autoplay. We can play new tapes, and in effect, recreate our lives. In order to change, we need to bring what is in our subconscious mind to our conscious mind. This is important. Many seminars, books, and programs teach us how to get to the root of our problems. This tells us if we can just hold the vision for what we want and get excited about it, it will come our way. Sometimes it works, but often it doesn't, because somewhere deep within our DNA there is a program to a pattern that we are not aware of that blocks that vision into becoming manifestation. If you want to know the end, you have to look at the beginning. I skipped second grade. I received a 34 on the ACT. I had a full-time job in high school. I graduated from high school as the valedictorian. I started University of Illinois at 17 years of age, joined a fraternity, and I had a full-time job. At the end of my sophomore year in college, my life changed forever. I was sexually assaulted. I had contracted HIV from the assault. While I was in my coma, a rare case of shingles traveled to my brain, which led to a series of different problems like varicella zoster, encephalitis with disseminated cutaneous zoster, an anoxic brain injury, encephalopathy, sinus tachycardia, aspiration pneumonia, and hypomagnesemia. When all of this took place, I was in a coma, and the doctors who were over my case told my mother that I only had a 20% chance of ever waking up. Since many different diagnoses took place simultaneously, it caused my body to regress back to an infant stage. When I first woke up, about 95% of my body was paralyzed, and I also had cognitive impairment. I recalled having suicidal thoughts. Then one day, it was August 12, 2012. I will never forget this day. I had a dream that I was graduating from college. That dream changed my outlook on everything, because I always said if you can dream it, you can achieve it. After I had that dream, I asked myself a very important question. I asked myself, how deep within myself am I willing to look to find the truth of who I am besides my physicality? My physicality may have left, but my mind was still the same. So I had to learn a completely different way and get used to this new configuration of myself. So I worked so hard to break the cognitive impairment. I would read brochures in the hospital I was in and generally try to stimulate my mind as much as possible. I traded how disciplined I was in school and substituted school for therapy. During my time in the hospital, I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't break, and that was to be the first in my immediate family to receive a college degree. So when I became strong enough, I returned back to college. It took me 9 long years to get strong enough to return back to school, and before entering school I had a long conversation with myself. I had to forgive myself for everything that happened in my life. The sexual assault, living in a homeless shelter during my first years in high school, abandonment from my father, becoming disabled, and also the negative inflections that come along with being disabled. Lastly, and most importantly, I forgave myself for wanting to commit suicide. I had to start school fresh. 2 months into my first semester returning back to school, I got the worst phone call ever. My beloved mother had passed away. This was the hardest thing I ever experienced, even harder than suffering a debilitating condition. When I first became disabled, my mother was there. Now I had to step back into school and stand alone. When someone you love becomes a memory, that memory becomes a treasure. When my mother was rushed to the hospital, I was hoping for a miracle. It wasn't until 6 months later that I realized the miracle was the love that she got to show me while she was still living. You have no idea who you are until you are put into difficult positions to find out. My first semester returning back to school, I received a 3.0 GPA. The second semester I received a 3.5. The next 2 semesters I received a 4.0 GPA for both semesters. I had succeeded, despite all that time away from school, going back to school in this new form, countless conditions and illnesses while dealing with the grief from losing my mother. I said I may be disabled, but I am not defeated. To my beautiful mother, I hope that I am making you proud. People ask me, Shannon, how are you dealing with the loss of your mother? I tell them that just because I am sad and grieving doesn't mean that I am not grateful and hopeful for the future. It doesn't mean that I don't have it in me to keep pushing. Sadness, grieving, lamenting, screaming, and crying. These are the ways we honor what we have lost, and the best thing I can do is to paying tribute to my mother by being the best me I can be. It's important that everyone knows that I am so much more than the bad things that has happened to me. I've been through every level of development, taking what I've learned from past experiences and transitioning it into this new way of living. Another thing that has really helped me navigate this journey is my faith. Developing an internal intimate relationship with something bigger, grander, more divine than myself. I travel to the Carl Foundation Hospital in Champaign, Illinois frequently to visit the therapists and staff who got me prepared for life again. One of my therapists asked me to have a conversation with a patient who was having a hard time coping with a newfound disability. She thought as an outside influence I could be a great representative of someone who was making the best of their situation, and that this person could learn something from someone who wasn't a therapist or doctor. During my conversation with this new patient friend, he asked me, "How did you make the presumption of what is happening to you and around you, as a function of what you choose to believe without that becoming a delusion?" I told him there are 4 levels to a struggle. There is a mental struggle, which is what you tell yourself about what you're doing, facing, and experiencing. Then, there is the emotional struggle of how you are feeling about what you are doing, facing, and experiencing. There is also a physical struggle about ways you climb out of this dilemma. The last, and toughest of the 4, is a spiritual struggle when questions arise like, why is this happening to me, or who is responsible for this? I found out everyone is different and that a particular person has to deal with struggle as it comes. When I first became this way, I had to learn this, and it was very hard to learn. For example, what someone said or didn't say, or what they did or didn't do, and how I chose to let such acts affect me. I had to learn everything over inside myself because when I first became this way, I learned that things wouldn't trigger my feelings or emotions like they did before. I learned that there are two different effects that coincide with each other that were important to me while I was dealing with my therapy journey, which was to suffer and struggle. The suffering was taking a direct hit on my pride when I was introduced into this new lifestyle, and the struggle was how do I manage this new lifestyle mentally, physically, emotionally, and still move on with my life. In some cases, the struggle is ongoing and it creates the suffering. In other cases, suffering is present and you have to struggle with how it unfolds. The suffering comes down to how you deal with the struggle. What it all comes down to is when you are dealing with rebuilding your life and trying to overcome obstacles, you have to know in yourself that you can overcome them. You have to create the mindset that this in life is a part of your journey and not a part of your final destination. If life was pleasant all the time, what kind of life would that be? Where will you grow? When a person who has to shift the pivot of who they are, fear takes place because it's like changing into a completely different person. Finding ways towards bridging differences and enhancing social equality in school settings isn't impossible, nor is it easy. I quickly realized that there is an algorithm along with systematic injustices against people who appear disproportionately to what is considered normal in the larger school setting. For some people who have a disability, this might be unbearable considering the fact of the trauma they are already facing. One example was when people would see me in my power wheelchair going to the door, and they would open the door. They never even asked if I wanted the door opened, and didn't say anything, almost as if I was a chore, or helping me was a good deed for the day, not considering how this made me feel. The saddest part about this is the unconscious realization how their behavior impacts others. There are a multitude of moving variables. Returning back to school for everyone is a hassle, but for someone who has had a shift in their everyday candid experiences was certainly a slight challenge. We live in a world where we expect quick communication, rapid-fire responses, and with AAC, people have to be okay in those quiet, more silent moments. People have to learn how to be better listeners when they are communicating with someone who communicates with AAC. For me in particular, returning back to school with an AAC device as my primary source of communication was very haunting. I was very hesitant about using an AAC device in classroom because it wasn't considered normal, or having everyday conversations with people would be tough because I noticed conversations using an AAC device doesn't flow smoothly like a regular conversation. So when I had a question in class, I would have my question prepared even before I rose my hand so I wouldn't take away from the instruction time. On the other hand, when the instructor had a quick question to ask the class, I wouldn't raise my hand because the time to type and speak with AAC takes time. Traveling around campus with it is a completely different experience. Since using a tablet to communicate is foreign and rare, most people don't know how to respond to it, students especially. It's kind of a strange coincidence how people who don't have a voice and who use a device for speech have to enter a world when there's an established structure to communicating. Transitioning from normal to what is considered disabled for me was difficult at the beginning because I was on the stride to accomplishing something amazing. Now that I've been placed in a position where I had to speak differently, I began to think differently about certain concepts. When my mother unfortunately died, I had no idea how to process that, along with trying to correct the wrong and continue college. One day I just typed out all of my emotions and I converted my words into poetry. While in class, someone seen what I wrote down and was in tears, saying that you wrote down everything I am going through in a beautiful way. Since hearing that, I told myself that my thoughts inside my mind can be a strategy into making myself seen in the community. I have been told by many, have you ever thought about getting your poetry published? I think this form of artistic expression has in some cases made different people not stare me but rather look into my soul. My poetry has eliminated the physical presence and made people look into themselves as in a self-reflection, if you will. It has also made people think of me in a more positive way. I heard from someone if you were able to capture how I was feeling in something so simple as a poem, and we are completely different as far as every aspect of our lives, from race, physical appearance, and gender. If you want to, you can probably get this out to a bigger audience and forge a better relationship with people who have an idea about who they think you are. Poetry has really changed my life. It has helped me in grieving and finding my ways back in the community. Finding something that relates to everyone in different ways has helped the inclusion part of school for me. I remember when a student who I told a poem to, one day after class, I seen him in the hallway. He was with a friend and he asked me to share another poem with him and his friend, which was getting my poetry out on campus. Being considered subpar to just about every aspect of life, I want to address facing the challenges related to others, assumptions related to my race and disability. Some African Americans like myself have cellular memory of being oppressed, subservient, and suffering. Now add a disability to the equation. Humans have natural instincts that shape our experiences in this world. This world has a keen sense of what is considered right instead of looking from a different perspective and advancing their own mindset by looking into a different set of glasses. People who have disabilities who are attending school have to follow a protocol of learning that really disregard the issue that person is facing. School is a fast-paced process. Instead of trying to understand and be patient, different people would like either to ignore me, like I am not there, or treat me subhuman. I understand that most people won't believe past what they see with their very own eyes. I believe that the way that people with challenges are treated, it is ableism at its finest. Me being African American and becoming disabled while attending school, I had to process my emotional well-being if I wanted to become successful in the future. College was the first step towards getting a job. I realized that after college there's the workforce that is more demanding of who and what they want to come into their establishment. I would have to be worried about things like inadequate accommodations and negative attitudes. With all this going on, I realized that I was going to have to work 6 times harder than everyone else to get some sort of equal treatment. Last year at my graduation ceremony, I was asked to give the commencement speech to my fellow graduates and family members. I gave the speech using my very own AAC device. This, I believe, made different people see me in a completely different way. At the end of my speech, I had hundreds of emails telling me how brave, courageous, and powerful it was. The commencement speech gave people a chance to see me for who I am. At the very end of my speech, I felt something that I hadn't felt in a long time, a sense of belonging to the community. What really helped me navigate school in this new world I was placed in was the fact of me being patient with myself and everyone else around me. Also, poetry. I honestly have no idea where I would be without it. My poetry has really been my safe haven, allowing me to grieve while attending school and interacting with others who need to hear a sense of relief. I have 3 tools that really help me through navigating school, and I would like to share them. 1. As a whole, don't allow yourself to indulge in social standards. Everything that was created for a purpose, for everyone to follow one track, the same track. Now that everyone is so opinionated nowadays and everyone has their own one-track mindset, we are able to overcome these things and beat society's standards and stigmas. 2. You create your reality by thinking of who you want to be and you act on it. Not fast but slow. Allow yourself to be educated on topics about things that you are considering doing with your life. So that way, when you show the world exactly who you want to be, it will be easier for humans to see that. Once they realize that the time and dedication was put in, effort, take your time and be delicate. 3. I found a way to relearn who I was. Knowing yourself is the process of understanding who you are, what you value, and what you want to achieve. It involves recognizing your strengths and weaknesses, your likes and dislikes, and your thought patterns. It also means being aware of your feelings and motivations, and how you interact with others. Sometimes it takes certain things falling apart for better things to fall into place. Sometimes it takes losing what you are settling for to remind you of what you truly deserve. Sometimes it takes the most uncomfortable paths to lead your life to the most beautiful place. I said to myself that I know that this is tough, but I realized I would never see the purpose of this storm until I seen the growth the storm produced. You will never understand why you are going through what you are going through until you see power, strength that is growing inside you. The storm that you are dealing with will eventually run out of rain. The struggle that seems like it is lasting forever will eventually run out of pain. I firmly believe that if you can change your perception, then you can change your reality. When I became ill, it took me a long time to learn how to come home to the truth of who I am, in order to stand fully in my power and presence of myself, so that I could find new ways to be happy, to have joy, peace, to stand authentically in my power as unique expressions of life through all my adversity. I have maintained hope and throughout my struggles, and I found a way to keep living and inspiring others to do the same. With my story, I hope to inspire people who don't feel worthy enough or lost their desire to continue chasing their goals, or the fact that someone else is going through something more difficult than you and still trying to stand. Being African American and disabled is a metaphysical dilemma that I like to say I conquered. Now I'm here to inform others on how I turned all of my worst experiences around into something beautiful. I realized how much of an impact I have made in my community. From inspiring others who have a disability, saying if he could finish college, what's preventing me, and with people who don't have any challenges, they said if he had the courage to go back to school, what's stopping me. Today I am in a good place. I've been taking medication that declares my body undetectable from the HIV for 3 years. I believe my calling is to influence and motivate others. I would really like to become a motivational speaker or a counselor to inspire, influence, and encourage others who are really having a tough time. Since my major issues began at college, I would like to focus on speaking to college students and remind them that they can make it because I did, to show different people how not to let their filter determine their future. I am going to close my lecture out with a poem I wrote, writing with dried ink. Weep, weep for the thousands of leaves unturned, unturned from pristine white to marred and beautiful and black with the traces of a writer's hand, who leaves nothing but the blood of the pen in its wake. And how many pages are so? What libraries could we fill with the genre of the blank page? What would they say? The thoughts of the reckless student of the university, spewed aloud to the wind, and dying there in that larger breath? The wisdom of the mother, out of time, left to sit amongst the plates and pans and dried on repast? The creation of the frustrated, that might be the saddest of all, for it dies in surrender, and the ghost haunts the mind of them who first bore it until death overtakes them both. And all these leaves die cold and white. What is the metric tonnage of the reams of the unspoken? How many a friend, over casual conversation and meager refreshment, spilled an idea that could take hold in wonder, build the chasm and fill it over, ride a dying heart as if it were a ship plucked from the reefs by rushing surge, only to see the wave lap over. The borders of the table do not hold it, and instead of filling the absorbance of a monochrome sheet, it runs off the edges into the grass. What wars were not stopped, that should have been. What wars were not started, that should have been. And the thought fills the mind with dread, for whose words can start a war? Harriet Beecher Stowe, we know. Thomas Jefferson, we've both heard and seen. Our neighbor, him, we know not where he got the pen. Ourselves, surely we should not even have the pen. For minds greater than ours will surely wipe out the genre of the blank page. Yes, That must be it. It makes more sense. It's come to its senses. It has its head in the clouds. Surely, that must be why all looks so dim. But it must look always down, to be sure that the feet are still on earth, and the roots that grow round the feet must be undisturbed. If we were to look up, and around, and forward, we might see that there is no cloud here, only the fading of the evening light. If we do not erase the genre of the blank page, no one ever will, and the silent libraries of the mind will burn on.
Wow. Wow. Sorry. You inspired me. I'm gonna not sit here and cry, but we're gonna open the floor up to questions that some of you may have. We have some mics that will go around the room. For those of you who'd like to ask a question, either raise your hand or get our attention. I'd like to first start with any of the AAC users that are in this room who would like to start with any questions if you want to. Can't see everybody around. Otherwise, please put your hand up or stand up and let us know that you'd like to ask Shannon a question. I'm not able to see. Questions? Somebody's got it. Oh, here we have somebody right here. Oh,
We do have one from the virtual audience,
oh,
David.
awesome. Let's hear it.
Shannon, the question was, are you on TikTok? And hold on, there's a second part. And have you been following the development of Hillman Talk? And would you consider doing a presentation or course with Hillman Talk? For those that don't know, it is an educational movement built by Black academics, teachers, and creators, and is a very exciting development.
Unfortunately, I am not on TikTok, and yes, I would love to explore different opportunities to get my story out to many people as possible.
We had a question up here, or do we have somebody else in the audience that wanted to ask? I can't see.
Yeah, hello?
Yep.
Okay. So Shannon, I have two parts. I'm going to be selfish. There will be a question, but I first want to thank you so much for opening yourself up, sharing your story. You made yourself vulnerable to all of us, and I thank you for that. There's myself included. There's a lot of people in the room who have things. We're all going through stuff, and you made it clear that they're not alone. And I just appreciate that so much. Thank you. And my question is, do you have a favorite form of poetry that you would like to share, a favorite format?
I really began writing poetry after my mother passed away to give my pain a voice. Can I share another poem? Paying attention. Your life is always talking to you, but are you paying attention? Are you paying attention to the things that bring you joy, peace, serenity? Are you paying attention to the mistakes that you made and the lessons that you learned from the mistakes? Are you paying attention to the circumstances, situations, and even those people who support you in doing less than you are capable of doing? Because if you're not paying attention, you will surround yourself around things and people who doesn't have your best interest at heart. To have choices or points of power. And when we are not paying attention to our lives, we are not making conscious choices, which means we are living by habit or default. We have to pay attention to every blessing that we have in our lives, or the chance to be a blessing in others' lives.
Hello, Shannon, and thank you for your great lecture. I'm Steve-O Larson, and I'm from Minnesota, and I'm 73 years old. At 70, I experienced a stroke, which impacted my left side, paralyzing my left arm and making it difficult for me to walk. But I've recovered like you described and have established a new life and gone through those 4 steps that you mentioned. I was fortunate to lobby for people with disabilities at the Minnesota State Legislature for 20 years, primarily working on Medicaid and community-based services for persons with disabilities. Yesterday, the disability community was challenged in a horrible way by the Orange Man, and he degraded all of us in our ability to work. And so my response was to call my congressman and share with him what I thought. He's a very conservative individual. And I called my senators also to thank them for their advocacy. Are there any other responses you would recommend in this difficult situation that we find ourselves? Thank you again for your inspirational lecture.
I learned never to mold myself for the acceptance of others. And you can't please everyone. Sometimes you just have to move on to better yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. And, one more question.
We do have a couple of questions around the same subject for Shannon from the virtual audience. The questions are,
One more. One more question.
they're all the
ahead.
same subject. Sorry, David. Are you looking to publish your poetry? Would you be interested in writing a book? Can we get a transcript of your speech? So the virtual audience are just, there are hearts and thumbs up and smiley faces for all of your poems. Thank you so much for reading just 2 of them.
There is one more after this question. So Kevin will.
For sure, sometime in the future.
We do have one more question. Sean, put the mic right up.
Oh my goodness.
I'm Kevin Williams. Shannon, as a fellow Black augmented communicator, I wanted to thank you for coming and sharing your story. Also, I wanted to welcome you to the legacy of the Prentke Award recipients. My question is simple. In your story, you said you started speaking in class. How long did it take for you to feel comfortable doing that?
I warm the students up with a poem after that, it more easily relating to people.
I want to thank you. And I am so proud to be a friend of yours now after this process that we've gone through. I want to thank all of you for being here. We've got Sarah to present an award. Oh, so, yep, go with that.
Shannon, thank you. On behalf of PRC South Hello, I'm thrilled to award you the 28th Distinguished Edwin and Esther Prentke Award. Thank you for sharing your story and for letting us see the world through your eyes.
I want to thank all of you for attending. Shannon's going to be around for a little bit. He'll be at the back of the room are you willing to do pictures? For pictures and questions. And if we have to make a change in the room, he'll then also be right in the outside of the lobby over there. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah.
Be on YouTube.
Oh, this will be on YouTube. It'll also be available at no cost on the ATI Learning Center, and we'll be promoting it throughout the year as well. So thank you all for coming. Shannon, thank you very much, and congratulations.